You cannot fight generational curses alone. It's a curse that didn't even happen to you alone. It's something that has been passed down and handed down from person to person to person. And the same thing can happen with breakthrough. Breakthrough can be handed from person to person to person. Hello beautiful people, welcome back to my channel. I hope that you are all doing well. Today we are getting into the nitty-gritty. We're going to start a conversation about something which may sound very heavy, it may sound quite mystical depending on whether you are familiar with it or not, but we are going to be talking about generational curses. And I think it's important for us to have this conversation now, especially as people who are on glowing and growing journeys, trying to create the lives that we want. It's important for us to really identify the patterns and the cycles that we find ourselves in, the challenges we find ourselves up against, and the potential roots to those problems. I think in the wellness and personal development space, it's very easy to get stuck on the surface level, to get stuck on the aesthetic, to generally invest in having the appearance of healing without really investigating whether we have pulled out the toxic traits, the toxic habits from the root, not just snipping off, the bad fruits and the rotting fruits that it produces. Before I get into this conversation, I really do want to caveat it with saying that I am a Christian, but I do think that this video will help anybody, right? I do think it will help absolutely everyone, and I think it will be food for your soul, so please do stick around. It's not a sermon, girl, but let the Lord bless you. I may be talking about some things which you may find triggering, or you may identify some things in yourself which you may need to work on. And I encourage you and I implore you to not work on those things alone. Please, if you can, go to therapy. If you've never thought about embarking on a therapy journey before, trust me, I have done it. I had my hesitations. I will leave a video actually up about when I started therapy and like what it was teaching me and the challenges that I had. But going to therapy is probably one of the best investments you'll ever make into yourself and your healing journey, all right? Get a therapist, okay? And I will leave the link to BetterHelp in my description box. That's where I do my therapy, and you can get 10% off your therapy journey, okay? And I will also leave the link to Faithful Counseling, which is a faith-based therapy system, very similar to BetterHelp as well. And both of those links will give you 10% off your therapy journey. This video is not sponsored. I just want you to get healing, please, okay? There is an affiliate link though, so I do make like a small commission. Please invest in your therapy journey if you can. It's really affordable and accessible because it is done online, so you can do it anywhere in the world. If you can put the money towards it, please get a therapist. The things that I'm about to talk about will be better done with a therapist by your side. Trust me. I've been having conversations with my friends, my sisters, the girls in my life who I have the privilege of doing life with. And we've been talking about the future, as you do when you get to a certain age, right? We're talking about kids and our careers and building certain levels of wealth and buying assets and growing up or like finding our life partners, right? And one thing we needed to confront was, okay, well, let's look at the past, let's look at our track records, and let's actually look at our history well past us. What has been modeled to us by generations past? What have we seen from our parents? What have we seen from our aunties and uncles? What have we seen from our grandparents? And it made me start to think about generational curses and generational patterns and dealing with them, because it may not have started with you, right? You may have never seen a healthy marriage before in your life, right? You may have never seen that model to you. No one in your family may have had a successful marriage, or you may have never seen anybody live beyond the poverty line, or you may have never seen anybody manage money well and buy assets and pass them down from generation to generation, and yet you have found yourself with this longing and with this desire to achieve that for your life. If you haven't had something modeled to you, how do you replicate it, right? How do you somewhat create something from scratch? And I think internet representation is really good, and going to the internet and going to certain places and finding mentors who can be a source of education is really important. But until you get to the root and until you get an understanding of what is lying underneath and what is lying in your bloodline, historically, socially, culturally, even genetically, you will not be able to apply that information to you accurately and really know where you are starting from. And it's important to know where are you starting from, right? And this takes me to my first point. If you're really trying to break a generational curse, you first need to identify the patterns, right? What are the patterns in your life? Where are you struggling to do the things you say you want to do, right? For some of us, it's not just a matter of being indisciplined or being, lazy. It could be you're putting so much effort, but it feels like life is resisting you. It feels like the wrong people keep coming your way. It feels like you can no longer say no to the things that you want to say no to, even though you so desire to. It even breaks your heart that you give in to certain things, but you can't stop. You can't break certain habits. You can't break certain cycles. And I think whilst we are all in control of our lives, I think a lot of us are up against a whole bag of issues, such as never having certain things shown to you, having never seen what it means to have a healthy marriage, to have healthy friendship, to be able to manage money well. If you've never seen these things in your personal life, not just on screen, not just in films, not just in videos, if you've never seen these things with your own eyes, they can still feel intangible. And no matter, how much content you watch, you will still have yourself thinking, I can never have that. It works, it's real, and it can happen for other people, but can it actually happen for me? And I think a lot of us find ourselves in that challenge and find ourselves asking ourselves that question of, I've seen other people achieve it, but can I actually have it? And this is no matter what age you are. I think the younger you deal with it, the better. But no matter what age you are, there is still opportunity to confront patterns that have been and cycles that have been handed down from generation to generation. And when I say understand the patterns and understand the cycles, what I'm saying is identify the poor decisions, identify the bad behavior, identify the things that you keep seeing from one person to another, and realize that they're not just coincidences and they're not just character flaws. They are oftentimes handed down from generation to generation. And what we need to understand about generational patterns and generational cycles, and this, I was talking about this with one of my girls, and it was so profound. It was, as much as we can hand down things from generation to generation, like houses and money and wealth, we can also pass down wisdom. We can also pass down culture. We also pass down culture, right? But also we pass down bad habits, and we pass down bad mentalities and bad ways of thinking, and things which are damaging to us, damaging to our communities, damaging to the people that we love, right? Because we do not know any better. And even if we do know better, we are so trained in doing the wrong thing that it's sometimes hard to break out, and we become so used to the results of the bad habits that we kind of stop thinking that life can be any other way. We just become complacent, we become familiar, and we begin to believe that this is all that life can be. And the sooner we identify the bad habits, the bad choices that people continually make, the cultures which allow toxic things to thrive, whether it be abusive situations, negligent situations, irresponsibility, the inability to master your own body, whatever it may be, the sooner we identify these things, the quicker we can set new things for ourselves to work on, right? There's no point applying certain tactics which are not going to help you fight your specific battle. And so taking time to identify what are the patterns that exist in my family, and that includes certain health issues. It includes, like I said, bad choices, bad habits. It includes also seeing where people continue to fail, where people continue to succeed. There are also generational blessings, right? Identifying what has my family struggled with? What did my grandparents struggle with? And it may not even be biological family, but the people who raised you and the people you were raised around, what did they struggle with? What was challenging them? And even if they didn't identify it as a struggle, where was there a lack of synergy between what they lived and what you're trying to live, all right? Where was there a disconnect? Where is there a difference and a contrast? Identifying those things, whether it be physically, spiritually, emotionally, financially, is important for you to, like I said, know where you're starting from, and also being able to know what you need to do and making the right plan for your journey of transformation and glowing and growing. The next thing is identify the trauma. I think a lot of us think that people are just lazy, people are just they don't want to put in the work that is necessary, or they don't want to, do the hard things that are necessary to cause transformation in life, that proper pull yourself up by your bootstraps mentality. However, I think a lot of people are traumatized. I think a lot of people are in pain. I think a lot of people have experienced on a grand macro scale of political and social injustices to even the interpersonal, everyday personal, right? People have experienced pain, and our response to pain can often lead us down cycles. And so when we are able to identify the trauma, the source of pain, the place where there was an injury, where there was an offense, the place where these things may have started, we are able then to also pinpoint the fact that pain can be healed. Even if the pain wasn't ours, if you find that somebody has gone through something which was a trigger for them, or that began that cycle because they were unable to heal from the pain, you can then begin doing the healing with them, for yourself, or whatever it may be. And once you identify that these things are not just innate, they are actually a pain and a pain point and the consequence of a scar or a wound unhealed, and what you're experiencing now is just the festering and the gangrene of the fact that there has been a wound that has not been dealt with, you can then pinpoint the fact that actually this isn't innate to me. I don't actually have to live like this all the time. This isn't something that can't be changed. This isn't something that can't be altered. This is something that needs to be healed, and pain can be healed. Therefore, there is a solution. And I find that that is very encouraging. I have found on my journey that identifying my mother went through this, my grandmother went through this, and that was the pain point, or my father went through this and that was the pain point. It's made me realize, so there's healing to do, right? And it may not have been me who experienced the traumatic things that happened, from ancestor to ancestor, from generation to generation. But now, because that trauma is to a degree in my genetics, because you can pass down trauma generationally. If you haven't read It Didn't Start With You, I highly recommend you read that book. I will leave the information down below for you to pick it up or listen to it on Audible. I think it's important for us to identify that trauma and pain can be passed down from generation to generation. Collective pain can become collective thinking, right? And it can become collective cycles. And that's what we need to address, all right? So actually taking time to identify what was the trauma, what was the pain point, where was the injustice. That's where we start to deal with the issue. And it takes reflecting on your history, but it also takes listening to the stories of those who preceded you. Listen to the stories of people who are teaching you culture. Listen to the stories of people who are training you up in the way that you should go. Listen to the people who are in charge of being your guardian, be in charge of your socialization, people who were in charge of teaching you norms, values, principles, wisdom, morals, whoever it may have been who was in charge of teaching you the way that you should navigate through life. Listen to their story, because when you listen to their story, you'll hear their perspective. You'll hear the things that trained them. You'll hear the things that taught them how to cope, the things that taught them how to manage things. You will hear the why behind the how. You'll hear the why behind the what. If you see something in your life and in the life of your parents, your family, which is repeated across, you need to identify where the heck did this come from. And I find that generational curses often start from a place of trauma. They start from a place of pain. And when that pain cannot be handled well, it is left to fester. And unfortunately, we think that spiritual pains, emotional pains that happen in our soul just heal over like scars. They don't. They get infected and they continue to rot. They continue to rot. And unfortunately, that pain and that infection and that ailment, right, becomes something that people learn to live with. It becomes something that people become so used to that they do not even realize that they are sick anymore. Because I wasn't the one that was cut. I didn't feel the initial pain, but now I'm living with the bruise, and I'm living with the limp, and I'm living with, metaphorically, I'm living with the result of an infliction. I'm living with the result of a trauma. And now I don't know what it means to even be healthy. I need to identify where I need to heal. People don't actually want to confront it because confronting trauma is scary. And I will talk from my own perspective, having to identify pain points, not just in my story, but in the story of the people that I love, can be very hard. Not just to listen to, but it can be hard for people to be vulnerable and honest, to be able to look back on your past, to look back on the things that you went through, whether that be traumatic events, whether it be loss, grief, poverty, and experiencing the realities of such. And it's the memories that you have in your mind of the moment something happened, which was scary, but it's marked in your mind, right? The moment that something so shocking, so painful, so heartbreaking can be burned into your memory. And it really alters the way your brain works, and it teaches you how to protect yourself. It teaches you how to not trust people anymore. It teaches you what to believe your life can be, or it forces you to become dependent on something which you didn't want to be dependent on before, and something which now provides you so much comfort. And it's hard to look back on those moments and then have to admit, damn, I was hurt, I was wounded, I was actually afflicted by what happened to me. Listening to those stories is hard, but telling those stories is even harder. And for me personally, I think this is why I believe so much in the power of a story told, a man's story told, a woman's story told. Just because it's not going to be written down in a book doesn't mean it's not a part of history. It is a part of your family's history. Take time to reflect on your story. What is the story of your life? What is the story of your parents' life? What is the story so far? Or what was the story in its entirety? Listen to the stories, because it's in the story that you find the patterns, and it's in the story that you'll find the pain, right? And it may take multiple conversations. The story of one's life cannot be told in one single conversation. So dedicate yourself to listening, dedicate yourself to searching. A lot of us think our parents are villains. And the thing about being a villain is every villain has an origin story. And those origin stories often surround points and events in their life which were extremely traumatic and extremely painful. And so before you kind of look at someone and you think you're just rotten to the core, it may not be that they are rotten. It may be that their wound is infected. You must identify the wound. And it's not giving people an excuse. I think when you are tackling generational cycles and generational curses, it is a decision that whilst I have identified the pain point, and the pain point is very real, and the trauma is very real, and the response to the trauma was probably warranted, as good or as bad as it may have been, I have to make a decision to break the cycle. And that has to be done in my behavior, because the cycle births a behavior, right? Taking time to really tackle what is the behavior that this point of pain, this point of rejection, this point of trauma birthed in me. What did it teach me? And then it may not have happened to me, but what was then taught to me. People often pass down what they believe to be best. And if what you believe to be best is something that you had to learn in response to pain, what you teach somebody is how to deal with the pain that they have never felt. But for them, that becomes their culture, that becomes their habits, that becomes their patterns, that becomes their behavior. And some of us struggle so much to alter our behavior because it's what we've been taught. And then we get to a point in our lives when we realize this behavior is unproductive, but it becomes hard to turn that ship because it has long since sailed. We have been training ourselves in these patterns and these behaviors and these neuro pathways of this is how I make decisions, and this is how I reason, and this is how I manage things, and this is how I cope, and this is, my perspective and my motivations. All of these things are coached and trained in us from the moment we are born, right? So it's harder to change. It's not impossible to change. It's harder to change the longer we allow it to go. But the first thing you need to do is identify the patterns. The second thing is identify the trauma, identify the place of pain, right? And there are so many things in our lives which can cause pain. It's abuse, it's neglect, it's poverty, seeing certain traumatic things, like things that genuinely are etched in your brain as moments your brain or your body was scarred, right? Seeing things, experiencing conflict, experiencing whatever it may be, and it happens in so many different ways globally. I think it's important to identify the pain points. And the third point, and I'll probably leave it here, maybe we'll pick up this conversation another day, identify the coping mechanisms. And the reason why most of us find ourselves in generational cycles is, even if we've identified the pattern, even if we've identified the trauma, we haven't identified the coping mechanisms, or we haven't dealt with the coping mechanisms. The coping mechanisms and the behavior is usually, and the behavioral response we have to trauma, or the behaviors that we exhibit because we have seen them modeled to us as normal, or we've seen them modeled to us as just a part of life. Because we do not problematize those, that is what becomes the curse. That is what becomes the thing that constantly sows bad seeds into our life and makes us reap bad fruit, or just no fruit at all, okay? The coping mechanisms include the addictions or the unhealthy habits. It could be drinking shots and shots and shots every weekend or every day, okay? It could be the bottle of wine that you cannot seem to put down. It could be the things that you sniff. It could be the people you lay with and having to lay with new people all the time. It could be the things that you watch. It could be the food and the inability to stop eating. It could be the huge amount of control you have to have over your food. It could be the eating disorder, okay? Or it could even be mindset. For example, if you find yourself constantly thinking, I will never be in a good relationship, and so I just need to settle for whoever comes my way because that's what I've been told that you have to do, because good men don't exist, good women don't exist, so I just have to, out of fear, pick the person, or even out of a scarcity mentality, I just have to pick the thing that is right in front of me right now, even if it doesn't fully make me happy. But I don't really believe that relationships can make you happy. I don't really believe that life can make you happy. I don't really believe that you can even be fulfilled or that you can even be healed. So why am I going to make decisions that align with that belief that I don't even have? A lot of us walk around with that mindset, whether we want to admit it or not, because we don't believe that life can be good. We make poor decisions. And so we have to sit down with ourselves and really identify the coping mechanisms, the results and the fruits of the pattern. How do we not only nip them in the bud, but also use those to trace back the root issue, which is a generational pattern or which is a trauma? The reason why I say things like this is for example, you guys may have seen the video I posted a while ago. It's not up anymore. It might be up. We might talk about that another time. All right. I posted a video talking about having a pornography addiction for like 10 years of my life, from like being a very young child into my teen years. And I had to trace that behavior and that habit back to the fact that I had a fear of intimacy. I was dealing with rejection issues. I was dealing with abandonment issues. And I was using that as a coping mechanism for the fact that I felt empty. I felt neglected. And so identifying where did this actually come from will help us to no longer do the surface level stuff of, oh, watching porn it's unproductive, it's unhelpful, just stop doing it, go on this 70-day challenge and you can stop doing anything. And it's like, okay, yeah, that's great, but what happens when the 70 days is over? And what happens when you get to a point where you feel broken and you feel empty, or somebody's just rejected you, and that night comes along when, yeah, for the last 3 months you've been fighting that bottle, you've been fighting clicking on those websites, you've been fighting going to eat certain foods for all these days, right? But now you've been triggered. Now something has come and it's ruffled the feathers of that little monster that lives inside of you, that tells you you're not good enough, you're not worthy of love, you're not all that you think you are. You'll never be able to break free from XYZ. What happens when that monster inside of you, which has just been put to sleep for a little while, is now awakened? You just go back to doing what helped you cope the last time. And as much as we know these things are bad for us, the things that are bad for us, unfortunately, whilst they are destroying us, they still provide us with comfort. They can still provide us with love. They can still, or a feeling of love, or an appearance of love. They still, as short-lived as it is, as momentary as it is, they still make us feel like, I'm here for you. And that's the thing about sin. That's the thing about these vices, right? They're always here for us, right? I'll be here when you next need me. The person who sells you drugs is always there, all right? The internet is always there. You can go and find me whenever you need me. And it's unfortunate when our coping mechanisms and our vices and the bad habits we find ourselves in are more present for us than the people we actually need in our lives to heal. And I think that's why you have to do this kind of journey. You have to do this work in committed community. That's why I mean, not me getting all passionate. Sisterhood and friendship is so important to me. Why do I feel myself getting emotional? It's so important to me. Mentorship is so important. Having your parents around, having people in your life who truly love you and who will stick around while you do this hard work is important, because you need to remember that there are people who are as committed and who are as present and who are as readily available as the bottle, or who are as readily available as the website. And yes, everyone has responsibilities and you can't be there for people 24/7. At the end of the day, we all have to go to sleep at some point. But my dad used to say this thing to me, which was, you need a 3 a.m. friend. And he's my 3 a.m. friend. Like, you need somebody who you can call at 3 a.m. and be like, I'm about to do something stupid, or I feel terrible right now, right? You need somebody who you know cares and will show up when you need them. And I think a lot of us become, shamed for having these, people call it codependency, or they call it being overly dependent. And I do understand where it's coming from to a certain degree. I think there is a toxic way or a toxic turn that this kind of intimacy can take. But I think it's important to have reciprocal and healthy, intimate relationships with people where people are present for you. People who know that this is what you struggle with. These are your vices. This is where you fall short. These are the battles that you are fighting in your private life, way past what's in your bank account, well past the achievements you have hanging on your wall in the form of degree certificates. I look way past the fact that, the whole world thinks that you are this big, you're the big deal. But what's happening when you go to sleep at night? What happens? What are the demons and the thoughts that you have in your mind that you are fighting day after day after day? Because while you may have the biggest grin on your face, there are people in your life who need to know that inside you're broken, inside you're hurting, and that hurt didn't even start with you. That pain was something that was handed down to you generation after generation after generation. And unfortunately, you are still fighting the same battles that your mothers, your grandmothers, your great-grandmothers were fighting. People need to know that about you. Not everybody. It's not everybody's business, all right? But go and find yourself some women who will stand by you and say, we're going to fight this thing together. And I'm also going to take the responsibility of holding you accountable to this transformation. But more than just holding you accountable and occupying that position in your life, I'm also going to occupy the position of a helper. I'm also going to occupy the position of a prayer partner. I'm also going to occupy the position of an intercessor, the person who will be there when you are weak, when you don't feel strong enough to fight this thing. I'm gonna help fight it for you. And there are such women who exist. I can guarantee you, these are not just things our mothers had. This is things that we can cultivate in our own, in our own generation, in our own communities. You cannot fight generational curses alone. It's a curse that didn't even happen to you alone. It's something that has been passed down and handed down from person to person to person. And the same thing can happen with breakthrough. Breakthrough can be handed from person to person to person. And it doesn't even have to be handed down vertically. It can be handed through horizontally. If you feel like you haven't got enough strength, enough power, enough knowledge to be able to break free from a cycle you have found yourself in, go and grab the hand of a peer, go and grab the hand of a mentor. Reach yourself out and up so that you can get that knowledge that you so desperately need. But I feel like it's time for us to start contending with the things that lie deep, deep, deep in our hearts. It's not just about watching the aesthetic videos. It's not just about watching the how-tos and 5 tips to do X, Y, Z. It's also about confronting the dark parts of our history, identifying the dark things that lie in our family, the secrets that nobody wants to tell. Take the lid off and let the wound breathe. Stop acting like these things do not exist. If you know that there is a pain, go to therapy. I'm gonna put a link down below. Let me calm down. I'm gonna put a link down below for you to start your therapy journey. Because I don't even want you to watch this video, feel super motivated by this video, and then go off and try and do this transformation thing by yourself. Healing doesn't happen on your own, okay? Please, if you can, invest in going to a professional who can help you identify the patterns, who can help you identify the trauma, and who can help you identify the coping mechanisms. If you're going to break a generational curse, you need somebody who understands what they are doing, especially with the mind, because a lot of this is a mental battle. But also go and find yourself in a good faith-based community. Go and find yourself in a good Christian community, in a church, around people who you can trust with the spiritual aspect of these things, because these things also require some kind of spiritual intervention and some kind of spiritual responsibility. The spiritual, the mental, and the social, right? The spiritual, go and find yourself a faith-based community you can confront these things with. The mental, go and invest in therapy. Please, 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 please. If there's one thing you're going to put your resources to, please open up that pot, that savings pot for therapy. Don't go and buy another bag. That bag is not going to heal you, all right? Go to therapy, please. I will leave the link below to sign up to affordable and accessible online therapy via BetterHelp. That's where I get my therapy from. And so please go and find yourself a therapist, one that works for you, one who can help you go on this journey, who has professional knowledge, all right? No more self-prescription here. Go and take these pains to a professional, all right? And then socially, surround yourself with people. Surround yourself with people who you can trust, people who themselves are wise, who are embarking on their own journeys, people who can be invested in you, who will give you their resources, their time, their knowledge, who can share that with you, who can help you stand up when you feel weak, okay? But people who can hold you accountable, but most importantly, people who truly love you and people who are ready to be honest. And that could be family, that could be friends, whoever it may be. Just build intimate relationships with people who will be there for you, who will be honest with you. I'm gonna leave it there for now. But if this is something that you have enjoyed, let me know. I've been thinking about making more like faith-based or spiritual content. I have had my hesitations. I just want this to actually help people. I want this to encourage people. I want you to know that there is life on the other side of this. I want you to know that you can experience breakthrough, you can experience transformation, okay? It may take a little bit of contending for it, but you're a winner. I can tell you that for free. You are a winner, you are a conqueror, you are going to overcome this, and all I pray for you is that you find the strength and the bravery, okay, and the courage to really confront the monsters that are under the bed. I think if we're going to make physical, mental, emotional, financial change, we're going to need to identify really what we're up against. We can do it. We can do it. We can expect, like, all these things, you know, trying to pass on better habits for legacy. Maybe the next thing I'll do would be about legacy and wisdom and all of that stuff. But if this is something that you enjoyed, give it a thumbs up. Definitely subscribe to my channel if you have not already, all right? And turn on your notifications so that you never miss a video from me. Comment down below if you enjoyed this video, things that you agreed with, any thoughts, any experiences. But as always, keep it respectful down there, all right? Keep it respectful. And also, if there are any videos you want to see from me, let me know. The girls over on Instagram have already let me know what kind of Christian content they would want to see, and I'm thinking about making content around it. Like I said, I have my hesitations, but you know what? I'm gonna let God lead. But as always, stay beautiful and stay blessed. Mwah.